Hey guys, it's Miss Kristen again. I just want to start by reminding you guys that we're praying for all of you. We know it's not an easy time. It's probably really hard for you guys being stuck at home. Mrs. Forsetto and I are both praying for all of you, and as is the rest of our parish family. I'm back again with your next video. And in this one, I wanted to touch on something that we've already talked about, right? We've already talked about the liturgy of the word and how important God's word is, but I wanted to hit this point home because we're learning about Mass because we're all going to be at Mass together when we finally get to that first communion, that big day that we've been waiting for. And we're all going to be there at Mass together. We're going to hear the readings. We're going to hear the gospel. We're going to get to do all that together. And I know you guys, you're second graders, right? You're like 7 or 8 years old. So why is God's holy word so important to you, even when it doesn't make sense? And remember, you guys, it doesn't always make sense to me either, right? That's the reality. Even the grown-ups, we act so smart, but we don't always know what they're talking about. So I wanted to remind you guys of a really good parable that kind of tells us how and why God's word is so important. I think you've all heard it. So do you remember that story of the parable of the sower and the seeds? Right? So my class, we watched a video on it. I think we read in our book about it. And there's a farmer, right? It's a great scene. And Jesus is telling the story to anyone who would listen. And he tells the story of how the farmer takes the seeds and he sows them on all these different types of ground, right? Like there's the thorns and the road, and there's the fertile soil. And something different happens to each one. And it's not about gardening, right? The video makes a joke about, is Jesus giving us gardening tips? Well, who knows? Maybe Jesus was a great gardener. I don't know. But what he was trying to tell us is that let me get to the next slide, okay? Because everything stands for something. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's think about in that story. And if you didn't get a chance to watch it, I'm going to share it, right? Okay, you're going to be able to have a chance to see it. And if you saw it, watch it again because it's funny, right? Show your grown-ups. They'll enjoy it. So in that parable, what did the story parts represent? Okay, so think about it. We talked about this. Who was the farmer? The guy who was sowing the seeds, right? Spreading them out. It's God, right? It's God. And the seeds, I found a typo on here, you guys. On my slide. So were the seeds us? Nope. Let's see if I can change it on the fly. Oh, look at me getting tech savvy. The seed is actually God's word, right? Remember we talked about that? So he's spreading his word. And then we get into where the different types of ground were. So the first type of ground was the road. And the road represents the people who, they don't want to hear the word. They don't want to hear God's word. They're not interested, right? Their life is just great the way it is, and they don't want to hear it. So what happens to the seeds? They died, right? So the next type of ground was the ground with all the weeds in it, right? So think about your garden in the spring before you can pull all those weeds out. Maybe right now your parents are making you pull those weeds out. It's good to garden. So those are the people who maybe they're interested. Maybe they want to know God's word, right? Maybe they want to hear about the Bible and they want to hear what Jesus taught, but they just can't hear it, right? So maybe their Xbox got in the way, or all these other things got in the way. So it made it really hard for them to hear. And then there was the thorns, right? So the thorns are people who want to know, but they're even worse off. They're just distracted all the time. So they can't even really hear because everything's drowned out by all the distractions. But then we have the fertile soil. So when the seeds land on the fertile soil, what happened? Right, they grew. They were able to grow. And what did that fertile soil represent? So think about it. If the weeds, the seeds couldn't really grow well because they got all mixed in, and the thorns, they started to grow, right? The seeds started to grow, but they got choked out. And then if we get to the fertile soil and they were able to grow, why was that? It's because the fertile soil is like people who want to hear God's word, right? They're willing to listen, but they also are going to live that life, right? They're going to be the fertile soil. So you kind of have to ask yourself, why is this so important? So the word teaches us how to live, about Jesus and his life. It teaches us about the apostles and the followers of Jesus, about God's love and his forgiveness, and how to be a good follower of Christ. So I'm going to assign you some work. I'm going to assign you that video, and I hope you all have a chance to watch it. Okay, I'm running low on time, so until next time.